And today, Corey and I are talking with Joe Malagisi. Joe is from A Plus Ornamental and Turf, located in Norwalk, Connecticut. Joe, welcome to the Green Grind. We're glad to have you on our show today.
Thanks, guys. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah,
Awesome.
You bet. Joe was a last-minute addition here just last week, I believe. We had a cancellation, and he happened to be in the right spot at the right time, so here we are.
Yeah, he sent an email in, and Joe, I appreciate that. It makes my job a little easier. We had somebody cancel that couldn't make it, and we'll be glad to have you on today and learn a little bit more about you and your business that you got going on there. So we'll dig in, buddy.
Yep, thanks. I appreciate it once again for allowing me to be on here.
You bet. Joe, can you tell us a little bit about you, your background, and kind of how you got your start into what A Plus is here today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll take you back to the beginning. So my dad started his first lawn care company, Malagisi Landscaping, in 1987. And he was, I think he was averaging $400,000 a year at his peak. And it took him to 2001. And he tells me all the time, he unfortunately didn't invest in the right people. It was too much of a headache. His quality was great. He knew his numbers perfectly, but he sold the business. And then ultimately, he ended up working for other people. And he opened up A Plus Ornamental in 2008 as a part-time gig. So me and my brother, we were kind of brought up into a landscaping industry sort of background. I started mowing lawns at 11 years old with my brother part-time. We would do 4 lawns a week. And for us, that was enough to buy us video games for the weekend.
Sure.
And that took me throughout high school. I ended up, when I was 14 years old, I applied to a plant nursery actually as well in Norwalk that my brother was working for at the time. And I remember I said to my brother, I'm not getting into landscaping. He goes, it's a plant nursery. It's not landscaping. I said, no, I'll never do it. Next thing you know, I ended up applying and I got the job and I fell in love with it. I ended up going on to their landscape installation crew and I was learning about plantings. And I stayed there all throughout high school. I mowed lawns on the side. I worked with my dad part-time on Saturdays and Sundays fertilizing. And when my brother and me went to college, my brother took up landscape installation design and horticulture as well as turf. I took a different route. I went into automotive because I had more of a passion for automotive. I still loved the green industry, but I didn't know where the next step was. I thought it was just mowing. That was it. So fast forward, me and my brother graduate college, and he took over my dad's part-time business full-time. He started offering every service you can imagine, installation, maintenance, and he ended up discovering quickly he found himself overwhelmed. So it was about 3 months into the business, and then I graduated college with an automotive degree, and I came on with him, and we started transforming the business. As soon as we both started working as a partnership instead of on opposite sides, it worked out for the better. Our first year, we hired 2 guys. It was definitely a rough first year. A Plus went from averaging $40,000 a year to $250 the first year me and my brother running it. But it was very chaotic. We found ourselves working a lot of late nights. And
Sure.
I said to my brother, there's got to be a better way to do this. You know, I always felt that I always believed in a foundation. It starts from the bottom. I wasn't a big fan of hearing, oh, you work, and then one day it gets better. I always felt there had to be a sort of a beginning step. So we reevaluated actually last winter of 2022. And we said, going into this year, let's work as a team. Let's not work as opposites. And we had a great start for 2022. We had some bigger jobs lined up, and we knocked it out of the park. We ended up hiring 2 more guys. And then we hired another one actually at the end of the year. And we ended up tripling our business the year of 2022. We ended the year with as a $750,000 business and paid off over $40,000 in debt from our first year.
Fantastic. I do like what you said there too, where it's like just work, and it'll get better. It actually won't. If nothing,
Gets worse.
if nothing changes, you'll just compound the chaos. And you mentioned the word chaos and hectic, and I think a lot of guys believe like we'll just work through it and then it'll take care of itself. I was actually just talking to a guy this morning about that, totally different business. They were in a power washing business, but he said the same thing. We're just going to keep working like crazy and it'll figure itself out. And I'm like, but it won't. It won't figure itself out. You have to just stop for a minute, tap the brakes, get the systems in place. Otherwise, you're going to work yourself to death. And he was talking, well, I'm just going to add more crews. And I'm like, but if you just add more crews to chaos, it's just a bigger, it compounds the chaos, and no structure, results in, in a mess. But you guys have grown that business pretty quickly. So I think in one of the in the email you said you have 3 partners. So is your dad still an owner in the company as well?
Yes. So my dad, he's CEO, he's the president. Me and my brother are both vice presidents. So he was part-time, and now we're kind of his retirement plan. He manages all the behind the scenes. He's not in the field as much anymore.
Sure.
So he's still involved, and he handed down the business to me and my brother, kind of shaping us to say, this is what I've done these years. This is how I can mentor you, but it's up to you guys to run it the way you feel fit, which I appreciated him giving us that sort of trust. And like I said, our first year was rocky, and having to sit down, we had to sit down and talk to my dad. And my dad's like, listen, I can't afford, not financially, mentally, and emotionally, I can't afford to see you guys go another year like this. I'm only 22 years old, and my dad's seeing that sort of stress on his son. My brother's 25, seeing on his sons. He didn't want to put us through that. So I sat down, and hearing that from my father definitely opened mine and my brother's eyes. And that's when we sat down together. We were like, we have to change something.
So tell me, how involved is your dad? You say he's behind the scenes, and knowing the way my business operates, I think, and Corey, you're probably about the same way. It would be difficult for me just to say, okay, you guys go ahead and run it the way you run it and think you should run it, and I'll be behind the scenes and truly be behind the scenes and watch it happen. And maybe that was something that you guys, maybe that was something you talked about over the winter when you guys said you got to all come together and figure this thing out. Maybe he reeled that in. But how has that worked for him, and how have you guys adapted to that? Has he just kind of hands off and let you do your thing?
Yeah, so it's definitely a struggle. So he was working for another landscaping company at the time that we started in 21. So he kind of had some established clientele, and we were picking up more. So he kind of thought like he was basically like, oh, figure out your own day-to-day. I'll manage the finances, show me what a bid you think on a job. I'll tell you if it's right, if you should adjust it. And right off the bat, it was a very hard system. To me personally, it didn't make a lot of sense in the beginning. And once again, like, we realized that quickly. Now, moving into it, now that we have a better background of the business, him being behind the scenes now, he sees jobs that we do. He's involved in our scheduling, not as much in our daily routines, like on job to job, but he focuses still on, I piggyback the financials with him, the bidding, the paying bills, sales taxes for the year with the accounting purposes of the business. And so that's mainly his role, but he's still involved. When we do a scheduling, we all 3 of us sit down together, and we have the bid in front of us. This is what this job entails. This is how many man hours it's bidded for. And we'll have the month schedule in front of us, and we'll all agree on what works best and what doesn't work best.
Nice. Boy, that's awesome. I mean, you guys have a coach and a mentor right there at your business, at your fingertips. I mean, guys would love to have that at their fingertips,
yeah,
I think.
I was just thinking, it sounds like you guys are communicating well. Let's back up just real quick, and then I want to get into the partnership, because we talk a lot about partnerships and the pros and cons. What services are you offering today, Joe? What is your company? What services do you do, and what is kind of what's your specialty? What's the division that you say, hey, this is what we're known for?
So we do landscape design, installation, and maintenance. And obviously we do turf and fertilization. So we focus mainly, when I say installation, we focus mainly on plantings. We'll do anything that involves plants, no matter how small, how big. Drainage, masonry, we offer it, but as a subcontracting service. We don't do it personally ourselves. We work closely with a company that is mainly, their main thing is masonry, drainage, any sort of extra work, you could say, in the installation field. And because we realized really quickly it didn't fit our business model. So we focus mainly on, we like to make grass. I make it short and simple. We like to make grass green. We like to maintain it, staying green. We like beds being weeded, edged. When you pull up to a property, I almost don't want you see any imperfection. I want you to have a hard time finding an imperfection.
Certainly. So you guys mowing as well then, Joe, or no mowing?
Yeah, we do mowing.
So you do mowing, fertilization, weed control, and then really the landscape is your thing. But you're not hardscaping. You're not putting patios, retaining walls, those types of things in, mainly the plantings. So you when you say you subcontract, so if you have to bid a nice job where they want a fire pit and a patio, but it also includes the planting, you'll subcontract the piece of the hardscape.
Yep, to a different contractor.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is that something that you guys just don't have the skill set to do, or you just don't feel like it fits your model? Because typically, most guys, as soon as they see they have that opportunity, they think, well, why am I subcontracting this, the patio work, the retaining wall work, the fire pit? Why don't I just get another crew that specializes in hardscape? Are you planning on getting there, or you just feel like your business model today doesn't fit that?
I feel that it doesn't fit it. We don't have enough knowledge about it, and I'd feel very it would all depend on the person. Like I said, in the future, my decision can change if we hire a guy that knows very very well about it that I can trust, or if it's someone that we knew that came on board that does that sort of work. I would definitely take the risk and do it. But between me, my brother, and my father, we just don't know enough about it, and I haven't come across anybody that has worked for us or that we've met that would be willing to expand that field on our business. So I guess to sum up your question, in the near future, if I had the opportunity to expand that, I would love to. But as of right now, I just don't want to overcommit and underdeliver to a customer.
Yeah, I like that you said that because there's so many guys, including Leroy.
I would have just said, okay, we'll figure it out.
You watched a YouTube video on how to put a patio in.
We did.
So I really appreciate that, Joe, and I hope our listeners understand that because, man, so many guys like, well, they wanted a patio, so we're going to put it in. Well, but you don't do patios. And so I do like that you're staying in your lane because you will have an opportunity to expand into that, and you probably will down the road as you guys hire some more skilled people, get an opportunity. The right guy's going to walk in and say, hey, man, I've been doing hardscapes for 6 years. And you're like, okay, here's our opportunity. Let's try a couple small jobs. And so I think that opportunity will present itself down the road. But I like that you're not just jumping in because it's so easy for all of us. I mean, we started putting patios in with people that shouldn't have been putting patios in. We started doing retaining walls that failed. We were doing a lot of ponds in water features at one point. Mm-hmm. They were fucking leaking, and we just weren't good at it. But we just couldn't say no.
Well, I think the biggest thing is Joe, he's 22 years old and saying no to this stuff. I mean,
you're smart.
Yeah, well, exactly. Think about if I would have had that, that discipline to say that at that point. But I think it brings up a bigger point to the fact that I think the hardscape business is getting tougher and tougher in the fact that skilled labor is just getting older and older and going away. And when we had Matt in here, he talked about his kids don't dig holes because they just. That's not the way kids are brought up these days. That's just not what you do. And I think as we start getting into this younger workforce, that skilled labor is going to become tougher and tougher to find. And
you've mentioned it here with even your team. You've said like
it's tough.
Same with Perfect Cut. We had one crew that specialized in hardscapes, and they're no longer with us. So we don't have the skill set to do a $300,000 hardscape job on somebody's several $1 million home. We don't have. It's a different animal. And so, I like that you're not just jumping in, Joe. I think you will eventually probably have opportunity there, and it'll make sense for your business. So you guys are doing, primarily installs on the planting, and you've got some mowing crews running. How many people do you have on your staff planned for this season, this 2023 season? I know you did 750. What does your staff look like for this season?
So it's me and my brother in the field with 5 guys. So we have 1 foreman and 4 laborers, and then we have 1 part-time secretary. Then obviously my dad behind the scenes.
Nice. So you guys are actually, you and your brother are still in the field daily. Are you? Does he have a specialty and you have a specialty? Are you guys crossing paths, or do you have something that you run and he runs?
Yeah, so I manage all the maintenance, so lawn mowing, weeding visits, and he manages all the installations, all the extra jobs that come through in that field. So we there are some jobs like spring cleanups where all hands on deck and mulching. We work well together, me and my brother. Like I'm not trying to sound like I have a big ego, but I feel like it's like for me and my brother, like no one can sling mulch as fast as me and him. So when it
challenge accepted. I'm getting old, buddy. I can't do it anymore. But yeah, I hear you. Yeah, one of the things we talk about with partnerships all the time, and so it sounds like you and your brother have kind of figured out your roles. But one of the questions I have is just, are you and him very clear on what your roles and responsibilities are? Like, I do this, you do this, and we don't cross, because at the end of the day, somebody in every business, somebody has to make a decision. And you've got your dad in there, and he's behind the scenes. But in every business, ultimately somebody's got to make the call. And so, are you guys constantly communicating on? You talked about the jobs that you're bidding, but when there's questions on, hey, we've got to buy this piece of equipment, we've got to hire somebody new. What do we pay them? We've got to let somebody go. Who's making those calls? Are you guys constantly just communicating very well and figuring out that together? How's that working for you?
So we always try to communicate, and those decisions we definitely try to make together. And at the end of the day, I feel like I can be a little bit of control freak in that aspect. I try to manage almost everything that goes on with the point that you just said. But there's always a constant communication with me and my brother. If it gets a little hairy sometimes, because there's some jobs where it's like you could say, hey, we need this, we need that, whatever you need, how many man hours, and the communication comes in handy when that job falls short, and he'll call me right away on it. This is where I'm at. This is what I'm struggling with. When it comes to buying equipment, since me and him are on the field, we're always talking about the future, the current, everything in our business. Like, every conversation we have throughout the day is, hey, the guys are doing this good on a job. I don't like seeing this on a job. I pulled into the shop and there's tools on the truck, there's seed and hay, and it's going to downpour tonight. So mainly everything that goes on in our business, either me or him always has something good or something bad to say. And I find that as a good balance, no matter how bad, no matter how good, because at least there's something that's always being said about it, and not just, I'll let it go, I won't worry about it. The guys did this, Joe didn't say anything, or Mario didn't say anything about it, so I'm not going to start. But I like how me and him have that open relationship, how we can almost say whatever too.
Certainly. And do you have to run, like, if you want to purchase something, do you have to run that by Dad?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So, yes, because he's involved in everything still. So we'll say to him, hey, we want a truck. But my dad always says to me, he doesn't have a problem with us wanting to buy something. And obviously I always reiterate this. I don't want to grow too quickly and get in over my head. I try to keep my monthly overhead consistent, because I don't want to just say, hey, we're doing all this work. We realistically, we're getting by with 3 mowers, but we need 7, like, just throwing that out there. But I try not to get in over my head. So if we need a piece of equipment, I sit down with my brother and I say, how is this justifiable? And then I present that idea to my father. Like, last year, we only had 1 dump truck and 1 pickup. And I went to my father. I was like, we need another dump truck. And we were looking at used. And I presented him the jobs we had lined up, what we needed it to be capable of. And I must have gone after work on weekends and looked at 6 or 7 trucks that looked good, and I was willing to pay good money for. And they were I would find something that I didn't like, or I saw that was an issue, or that was hidden. Ultimately, that led us to buying new. And then we were partly against it because you didn't want to get wrapped up in a payment, but we justified it to my dad. We were willing to put a good amount down. And I told him, this is our monthly overhead. We paid some stuff off. Like I said, we had debt from the previous year that we paid off before we even thought about buying a truck. So I was willing to make that sacrifice of, I'm not buying a truck until debt's paid off, until equipment's paid off, to keep my overhead as consistent as possible.
Yeah, the discipline in doing something like that is going to pay off dividends, I think, down the road, and you'll see that as your company continues to grow. That, if you watch your debt and your debt income, and as your income goes up and your debt stays the same, the profitability will go through the roof. So that's absolutely awesome with that.
And I think at your age, I don't want to beat up on the age, because I was running Perfect at a young age, and people thought, well, you're young and you don't know what you're doing, but you're already thinking through much better than most business owners I talk to in their 30s, 40s, 50s. And, it's just, I need something, we got to buy it. I need something, I want to buy it. And it's like, did you run the numbers? How do you pay for it? Do you have enough work lined up? What does that do to your debt strategy? And most business owners in our industry, and it's not a knock on them, I've been there, I know probably Leroy's been there, I can tell you we bought stuff all the time without even running the numbers. And now it's kind of what are our wants versus our needs. And we have to run it by. This machine costs X. We think it's going to get us this efficiency. This is how much it costs. This is how much we're going to put down, or we're going to pay for it with cash, or we're going to finance it. What's the lifespan of it? What is it going to do to our efficiencies? I mean, we really work through all the scenarios, and it sounds like you're doing that, Joe, which kudos to you on that, because I don't know, Leroy, when you need something, sometimes you just fucking buy it, right?
Oh yeah, just buy it. I don't ask any questions. I just go get it. And not so much today, but I'm telling you, early in our career, early doing this thing, we just bought it. Didn't think twice about it. Didn't run a number. It didn't make a difference. We need it. We're just going to go buy it. And, that's just what we did.
A lot of guys do that. So I think you're definitely on the right track there. And you're looking at, what we're going to pay something off first. And so I really appreciate that. And I hopefully, our listeners are doing that, because, it's easy. We talk about it a lot. You roll into the John Deere dealership to get a string trimmer. Next thing you know, you drive out of there with a brand new 930 because they got free entry. It's like zero down, zero.
Right. Why not buy it?
And next thing you know, you're pulling out with, two brand new mowers.
Might need it someday.
Yeah. And so it's easy to get caught up in that. And, and I also agree that sometimes new makes more sense than used. I've looked at, we did that used game a lot with equipment and trucks for so many years. And it certainly helped us on our cash flow at the time, but we'd buy this truck for 25 instead of a new one for 35, and then the trainee goes out of it, 6 months later, and we're like, shit, we should have just bought the freaking new one.
Yeah, I was going to mention that too. That dump truck, I've never come across a used dump truck that's been babied. It just it doesn't happen. And people, and we're the same way. We beat the shit out of them. We beat the shit out of our equipment, and those are the reasons we just buy new, because of those reasons alone.
Yeah, it absolutely pays off.
One question I've got for you, Joe, and we're back to this again, Corey. You said early on, your father's company didn't do well because he didn't invest in the right people, I believe were your exact words to that. How has that affected your business today, and what have you guys learned, and what has he passed along from his previous business not to do, and how has that helped your business today?
The best piece of advice that he gave me, and me and my brother, we talk about this all the time. I go into my day, this is the first thing I think of. You need to run the business. You can't let the business run you. That's what my father said to me. And when he had his guys, it was kind of just, he had all this work and he would just hire whoever came off the street. He had a couple guys that he knew that his foreman that he brought into this country, he knew the guy before, but he helped him get his papers. He helped him get legal. He gave him a job, and it started out great, but it got to the point where my dad's like, the crew's starting to roll in later every day, every week. It's getting 15 to a half hour to an hour. And they're doing the same amount of houses. The guys are coming in with cocky attitudes. Every spring they would hit them. Hey, we need $1 or $2 raise. And they would form together and say, give us a raise or we're leaving. So as my father, it was just him. And he's like, what could I have done to prevent this? And it all came back to, he just hired, my friend wants a job. Oh, bring him in. He didn't really scan through them and say, okay, do I see this guy being beneficial to my business? He's really close friends with this guy. He says he doesn't want to be on a crew without this guy. Is that going to be a problem for me long term? And that's something he didn't do. And ultimately it led to him just having the decision, I can't keep going into my day every day with fear, knowing are my guys going to show up? Are they going to leave me? And it just was something that was stressing him out, and it was unfortunate because he was very profitable in his business, and I respected it. All his trucks were new and paid off. He would upgrade every 3 years. He would brag to us and say, but I would pay them off. That he's just structured his way like that.
Right. Well, that's a good point, because running a business with fear is tough. I can tell you, we were much, much bigger, Joe, than you were, and we still had guys that were running us. And I think I've told this story numerous times, but even with to Leroy, but I stepped in and ran our mowing division maybe 6 years ago. We had to let our mowing manager go. I think we were running 14 or 16 mowing crews in our Des Moines branch, and we had to let this guy go. We just had to. And I remember having the meeting, and everyone said, well, who's going to run the mowing? And nobody stepped up, and I said, I'll do it. I don't know why I said that. It was dumb. But I said, I'm going to step in. I'm going to run the mowing crews. And it was a great opportunity for me to get re-engaged in the company. I learned a lot about our company again because I had not been in the day-to-day for probably 10 years in running the crews anyways. And I saw a lot of flaws. I saw a lot of things I wanted to fix, but I quickly realized that my 25 mowing guys were running me. I mean, they were telling me what trucks they were taking, that's my mower, and I only take this one. And I'm like, first off, none of those are your mowers; they're all mine. But I'm like, I can't. I need these guys so much. We had more work than we should have had. We couldn't get it done. We were running 65, 70 hours a week. There were so many mornings where I wanted to just let people go. And I finally, at one point, I remember this guy named Zach, and I said, Zach, you're going home today. And I did it in front of everybody. He was arguing with me, and I said, get your truck. You're not working today. We're parking the truck. And I had to do that. I had to make a stand finally. And I remember I had to call the account managers and say, hey, none of your sites are getting done today. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I had to park a truck. I'm like, why? I'm like, I can't take this. We have to stop the chaos. Like, these guys do not run the show here. But fear, we didn't have more people to replace them. And it's tough, man. And I remember back even in the day when we did a lot of Saturday mowing, we had to change payroll to Saturday because we'd give everybody their checks on Friday. And then every Saturday it was just, we needed 17 guys and 12 would show up. 8 would show up. Yeah. So we literally had to change payroll to Saturday because that's the only way we could guarantee that they would show up. And we were running out of fear. And it was, man, I tell you, it was a shitty way to run a business. And then guys wouldn't show up on Saturday and they should have been fired, but we needed them Monday. They'd show up Monday, and guess what we do? We put them back in a truck because we don't have anybody to replace them.
Well, and I think the fact is that a lot of companies still operate that way today. I mean, how many times have we heard, I can't fire that person, I need them. They want $35 an hour, I have to pay it because that's what I think so many people are operating that way today yet because of that. And, the fear of losing that person and what am I going to do? And it changes. And Joe, have you guys changed like the way you hire people and the way you interview people and those types of things based on that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Our first year, it was the same way. And that's why I felt we were falling into my dad's old habits without knowing. Someone would come off the streets, hey, come in, and our first year we were like cycling through 2 to 4 guys. And we kept seeing like, hey, you need to be in the yard for 7:30 in the morning. We roll out by 7:45. They're not walking up till 7:50. We're like, we're struggling to get trucks loaded. And I had to let 2 guys go that first year. And I was fortunate that my 2 guys that I started with, they're still with me today. And our second year moving into it, we had this similar habit forming because we didn't know how to change it. And we were just, hey, whoever walks in, if we get a good vibe from them, come in. We would be standing out in our yard by one of the trucks saying, oh, yeah, come in. And then oddly enough, I started listening to you guys last summer. And one of the first podcasts I listened to was how you guys, how you want to come off when you're hiring someone. If you want to put out a good job ad, not just help wanted. Mm-hmm. You want to put in, this is what the job entails, not, oh, you're going to make $18 an hour and you're going to be weed whacking. So now, when we hired our 3 other guys, we brought them up to our office. We got nothing to hide up here. I'm fine with my guys coming up to the office if they have something to talk about. We sat them down at a table and we told them, these are the hours we work. Sometimes it's going to be harder than others. If we get rain, we're going to work later. Sometimes we might work through the rain, depending if it's just drizzling. We're men. Let's just work through it. And definitely when we started doing that, when we started focusing more on how we presented ourselves, we started noticing that the guys took us more serious. And instead of just us waiting for them to show up, hey, we start at 7:30. We expect everyone to be here. And they were here at 7:30. If we get it clear right off the bat, it was just it was a good transition. That's like, long story short, I noticed when we just structured it better and we focused more on talking about our background and our expectations instead of just hiring people, it worked out for the best.
Yeah, expectations are so important and laying it out clearly. And then if you allow a guy to show up 15 minutes late, then they all just start showing up late. And then you start to accept mediocrity. You start accepting that guys are going to be late. Yeah, Jim's just late every day. He just does. And Mike's late every day. And that's just kind of what we do. And yeah, so it's super important. And it also makes you look really weak as a leader. If you allow people to run you, and if you allow people to show up late, and you allow them to not unload the trucks like you had mentioned at the end of the day, or there's trash in the trucks, or whatever your values are that you guys want to uphold, it just becomes really sloppy. And and when you're small, it's super important, because if you don't get your arms around that stuff in the beginning, it's just pure chaos. And back to what we were talking about with keeping bad people on, Leroy. I mean, you talked about a mowing guy that you had a couple of years ago that you kept on probably a year too long.
Probably a year and a half too long.
Maybe
really.
a year and a half. But I talked to you about it 5 times probably, or 10, and you're like, man, I just can't. I don't know who else is going to do it.
Right.
And we just do.
It happens, and they get you, and you get into that mindset that you can't do without them, and it just and we've talked about it 40 times, but how many good people did we lose because of the one bad person? And that's the thing that I think we lose so much sight of, is that they're driving people out of your business, and they could have been superstars, and you'll never know it. And it's sad to think that, but it's the truth.
Yeah,
so
and doing good, like you mentioned, Joe, doing a good interview with people, having clear cut expectations, laying out the job duties and the roles, and we like to tell people, like, this is tough work, man. It's hot. You're going to get your ass kicked out there. We work Saturdays sometimes. Being super clear. When we started doing a much better job in our hiring process, we didn't hire as many people, but we got the right people, and not everyone worked out. But our turnover rate at Perfect Cut is a fraction of what it used to be. I think Matt mentioned. I mean, we used to be at 50%. So 1 and 2, just left, and now I think we're at maybe an 85% retention rate. And so getting the right people on the bus, man, it's so important. And but everybody's struggling for people, so sometimes you just hire everybody that walks in the door, and then you get shitty people and chaos.
Unfortunately, and it just happens way too often. And I heard a phrase a few months ago, and what we allow, we teach. Mm-hmm. And meaning, if that guy's allowed to be 15 minutes late, he's going to be 15 minutes late every single day, because we just allow that. And as soon as we allow it for him, 3 other people are going to join that thing, and you've just lost all control. But you're 100% correct. When we started changing the way we interview people, and the way we present ourselves, and the way they come into the office, and the way we talk to them, and just the different questions we ask them in general, you get a completely different type of person. And you're still going to get those people that come in for interviews, but we weed them out. We do a phone interview with everybody now before they even come into our office, because there's no sense in wasting their time. If they don't have a driver's license, we're beyond that now. We just will not hire them. If there's several different things, several boxes that they have to check, and we have all those things on our application and our deals, but they're not that difficult. But some, driver's license, just one of those things.
One of the things that you said too, Leroy, I think a couple weeks ago, is that you sometimes like to have interviews at 7:30, or do you do it super early?
We do it early. I do it as early as I can. When are you available? Anytime tomorrow. Okay, let's do 7:00. Well, I'm not there. Well, you said any time, so if you're not, okay, how about 7:30 then? And we do it early, because if you're going to show up at 7:30 for the interview, you're going to show up for the job at 7:30. If you can't make it to 7:30 interview, if you're running late on the interview, which it's happened before, I'm running 15 minutes behind. I'll be there. Don't even bother.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because we've done the same thing.
I don't need it. I don't need you here.
Yeah, we've done the same thing where we do, if you miss the interview, it's over. Now, there have been situations where someone has reached out and said, hey, man, I've got a situation, an emergency, but we're still not very flexible anymore, because it's usually a trend that we just know that there's going to be something, right? My car broke down. Like, did it really? Your car broke down? Or someone's like, hey, man, traffic's really bad. I'm going to be 20 minutes late. Like, you didn't plan ahead to get to our facility for the interview that you're saying you want the job. So, yeah, we won't beat that one up too much more. But I do like that 7:30 interview, because if you can't get to a 7:30 interview, you can't be here at 7:30.
Or the first day. The first day being I can't make it to work the first. Did I tell you about? So I had a guy. It's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years ago, something like that. And first day was showing up, and he sends me a text message, 15 minutes before he's supposed to start. Hey, I forgot today's my birthday. Do you mind if I take today off and start tomorrow? I said, why don't you take the rest of the summer off and celebrate?
It's my birthday.
Get out. So. Joe, it sounds like your business has been growing, and I assume you're going to continue to grow it. What do you see hindering the growth? What is going to slow you down? What do you see as your biggest challenge for that?
Definitely, it all goes back to people. So a couple guys we hired had no experience, which I personally I liked that. Well, I grew up with one of my foreman now. He was my neighbor. He was a year older than me. We were best friends growing up. And when I was in college, he started with my brother for the first couple months while I was still in school. No experience, none whatsoever. Didn't even know how to hold a shovel. He worked with us our first year, started getting better on the mower, so we started letting him mow. Second year, last year, I ended up getting hurt actually in our shop. I got a concussion. It knocked me out. And it was the first week of mowing. We were getting ready to do our initial cuts. And then me and my brother freaking out. We had all this work lined up. I'm like, who's going to pull the truck with the trailer? We had an 18-foot enclosed trailer at the time. And he stepped up. He said, I'll do it. I'll give it a shot. And I was so stressed out and scared. Is that thing going to get smashed up? Is it going to be dented? Looking back, it was falling apart anyway. So if it did, I don't think I would have been as mad. But he stepped up and he took it over. And there were some complaints that week, but just the what's the word I'm looking for? Just the inspiration of him saying, I'm gonna step up. I see you're in a tough situation for this week. He took the guys. And our yard, we have a tight incline that to back up in our driveway to our shop. And I told him, if you can back a trailer up that incline on that tight of a slope, you can back that trailer up anywhere. And he was doing that his first week driving that trailer. And I was so impressed. And he ended up going out. There were certain days last year where if I couldn't go out, if something broke and I had to stay in the shop and fix it, he would go out and cut. And it's to the point where I'm trustworthy in him. And now we're expanding on another mowing crew designed specifically for him.
Nice. And I like what you said there too. You know, I've said this numerous times, but we'll take people with no experience all day long with the right core values, right attitude, willingness to learn. We've just had better luck with those people. Now, it does take longer to train them, right? A guy doesn't know how to start a mower, doesn't know how to shovel, doesn't know anything. So the learning curve is certainly longer, but you know, we all see a lot of ads on Facebook. I mean, looking for help, must have 3 to 4 years experience, all this nonsense. And it's like, it is nice if you can hire a guy that can walk in tomorrow. If Leroy could hire a guy tomorrow that could walk in tomorrow and mow grass or hardscape, it is nice. But usually those guys bring some baggage, some bad habits. If they've worked for 4 companies in the last 3 years, I start to wonder what's going on. Are they the problem? You know, I work for this company and they suck, and I work for that company and they suck. I'm like, maybe you suck. Maybe you're the problem. But so, yeah, I mean, getting guys without experience, it certainly takes longer, but I find that those guys stick around, and you can train them your way, and it works out. So you think the biggest challenge for you to grow is going to be hiring the right people?
Yeah, absolutely. Just because the area we're in, I'm seeing, especially my people I graduated with, friends, they don't want to get into this industry. They don't want to get into trades in general. And it's tough. There were a couple of kids that actually reached out to me that I graduated with. Hey, you know, I'm looking for a job. And I knew them personally. I'm like, oh, this is a strong dude. Yeah, he can probably handle with us. And I'll text him, hey, can you come in and meet? Can we discuss, you know, moving forward if you want to work with us or not? Yeah, I'll come in. We set a date, and then I never get a text back. It's like I just get completely ignored. So it's kind of like I get that's the name of the game, but it's like, why waste my time if like you weren't intending on following through with it? So definitely that's our struggle still continuing, is shaping someone to become another leadership type role, and kind of to help us expand on other crews and take on a little more work, because it is tough with just 3 crews taking on more work by the day. You got to kind of just scale by what those 3 can do. And if you don't have, in our case, if we don't have someone coming in that either has experience or is willing to grow with us, it's definitely hard to take on a little more to develop that 4th crew.
Yeah, at your age, I was thinking there might be an advantage. I was thinking you being 22, your brother being 25, you probably know quite a few people that are younger. But the challenge, that, as Leroy mentioned earlier, is most of those dudes don't want to do landscape, lawn care, get dirty. And I think that's the big, when I was much younger, I mean, I had my pick of so many guys. I just knew when I was 20, 21, 22, even, I just knew a ton of people. Some were going to college, some weren't. I had people come. We had more employees than I could just pick from the best. And today, as we mentioned, I just don't think, I think it's, it's still looked down on. If you go tell your parents, some 22-year-old kid says, well, I'm going to go cut grass for Joe, they're like, really? Like, you might as well go work at McDonald's. And it's like, no, I think there's an opportunity here. And it's just still looked down on, I think. And I don't think most guys they don't really want to get dirty.
Yeah, and I think too, it just is, you know, it's changed, and it was different then when you could get all those people. And I'm not saying it's worse today or any, you know, better today. It's different. It's just, you know, times have changed, and that's just the way that it is now. And those guys just don't do that. You know, kids just don't work as much, or they're more, you know, I think of my kids, and, you know, Carson works for us, you know, part of the time. He worked at Home Depot, and he hated it because there's, you know, just the structure behind it, and you have to be at a certain place, and just not his thing. And my daughter babysits, so she's a little more independent with their, you know, kids they just don't have that, you know, go to McDonald's mentality and work at 14 anymore. So,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah. Nothing wrong with it, but yeah.
I was made fun of in high school for mowing lawns and doing landscaping. Like,
so was I. So was I. Who's laughing now?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
But I was made fun of even when I was, you know, out. My buddies were going to college, and everybody was going to get a degree, and here's Corey out cutting grass, and some people were making fun of me, and you know, it is what it is. It's like, you know,
call them up, ask them how they're doing today.
Yeah, like, well, you want a job, fucker? That's kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just being a dick.
So, where are we at here, boy? You got the fucker drop there. What are you guys doing to continue your education? You know, plants are changing, fertilizers are constantly changing, pesticides are constantly changing, those types of things. What are you guys doing for continuing education, not only for yourself, but, you know, for your team members as well too?
So, I'm always personally researching. I'm always on YouTube. I listen to podcasts, and I'm always trying to expand my knowledge. I buy books in the industry. My dad has old books from the early 2000s that I still read. My brother has his old college books that I go through. We're trying to branch off to go to more events. We went to the Baltimore convention over the winter to see sort of the agricultural side of the business. We want to plan to go to Equipped Expo, just to be out in that sort of environment, because I feel like there's talking to different booth members. We were talking to the guys at Mulchmate, and just the information on just the speed of how the conveyor goes, and it shoots X amount of mulch out in X amount of seconds, how much more efficient that can make you. Just listening to those aspects of the business, I'm always trying to figure out, even if I feel I have something kind of like, at the best that it can be, I'm always trying to think there's a better way to do this. There's a better way to do this. And informational wise on fertilizers and plants, we're always reading labels every year. Even if we buy the same product from our supplier, send us the labels. We want to read what it does to the lawn. We want to figure out when the crabgrass window is to apply. We're just always trying to expand. I'm always on YouTube and on podcasts.
Yeah, even on the chemical side, I know that I was listening to Bob Runyon talk in our meeting last week, and I mean, we've continued to change our program with the sci-fi program, for spread it and forget it. He's changing some other stuff that he thinks has got more nitrogen. I mean, blah, blah, blah. I'm not an expert, but we're constantly trying to figure out what products make the most sense for our clients, what gives us the best look of turf, you know, healthy turf, the least amount of callbacks, the best weed control, all those different things. Joe, what are you guys doing for software? I mean, software is something. Are you guys utilizing software in your business to help with routing, billing, collecting, those types of things?
Yeah, so we implemented that from day one. We use Jobber. My dad never used the software before, and it's still tough to get him to understand it. We had an argument actually like a couple weeks ago. He wanted to send a customer an estimate through his email, his personal email. I said, Dad, that's not how we operate. And to talk to my father to tell him in his business, this isn't how we operate, it's a tough conversation to have. And he looked at me, he's like, what are you saying? This isn't how we operate. I've done this my whole life. And I'm like, and I had to sit down and show him, Dad, this is Jobber. We've been using this. I have it. You logged in on your computer. This is how you do an estimate. And Jobber's great. We love it. It keeps us on track with sending out invoices, scheduling, seeing who's past due, keeping our monthly log of what we're projected, what we have lined up. And I feel it just gives off like a really professional look when you send out an itemized invoice instead of sending a Word document. Hey, your maintenance for the year is X amount of money, and it's just scribbled down below. I like having them see you do this time of year. We do 5 fertilizer applications. We do biweekly weeding visits, weekly, monthly. We do 32 mows, 8 fall cleanups. I like it all itemized with individual prices.
Nice, yeah, whatever software you're using, guys. Obviously, Jobber's a sponsor of the podcast, so I'm glad to hear that. But and we, Ballard, we endorse Jobber because I love how easy it is. But I don't care what software you use. If you don't have software in your business, get it. And you don't have to stay with it forever. I mean, Leroy, you're probably on your third software now, I think.
Yeah.
But you change as your business changes. If you find that the software you have doesn't work for your business, Perfect Cut's on our fourth or fifth. Day one, we started with Clip way back a million years ago, and we've changed numerous times. But if you're not using software in your business, guys, get software. It's so freaking worth it. I don't know how many times we talk to guys that just, I don't have time to do that. I'm like, you'll have so much more time if you just. Plus, it looks better. To your point, professional. You can the invoicing, the payment. There's so many things that software will do for you that I don't think most guys. I think there's just a fear.
Yeah, there absolutely there is. Well, it's a big change, and it's a small investment, but it is. It's the change of how you do business on a day-to-day basis. And it's hilarious you said that about your dad. I had the same conversation with my wife last week. She's wanted to send out these estimates through, and I'm like, no, that's not the way we do this. It needs to be done this way. Well, it's easier to do it. Just do it this way because it's easier in the end when they actually sign the agreement.
Yeah, when they approve it, it's got to go through our system, and it loads it all in. And
it likely was an easier conversation with your father than my wife. I will mention that. But,
yeah, she didn't talk to you for a couple days.
No, she's fine with talking to me, but apparently I didn't talk correctly.
Well, you probably weren't. You weren't very nice. I'm guessing.
So, here's kind of a loaded question, but how has the Green Grind helped you with your day-to-day operations and growth? And I say that just because he mentioned it in his little thing blurb when he sent it to us. So.
Tremendously. I listened to almost every single one of your guys' podcasts. I've listened to Fullerton Unfiltered, Brian's Lawn Maintenance. I listened to Kid Contractor.
Yeah, Caleb's funny. He's funny. I like Caleb.
Ours is funnier though.
But yeah, Green Grind. I definitely listen to the most. I'm not just saying that, but whenever I feel I don't have all the answers. My dad doesn't have all the answers. My brother doesn't have all the answers. Whenever I feel that I don't know what to do at a certain phase of my business, I'll look up a podcast. I'll put in on I'll go on Apple and just type in yearly revenue and punch it on Green Grind, see what comes up. And definitely when it came to hiring and scheduling, as well as even just financial background and investing back into your business, just hearing all the information from different business owners that come on as well to the Green Grind, and just hearing your guys' personal experiences, it definitely makes me feel better. Corey, there was one podcast I heard there. We had a planting job, and a lot of the material died, and luckily we put a big enough markup to compensate for it. But I was really nervous, and I kept telling myself, like, when I have a hard day, I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm gonna be sleeping in my bed. So I heard on a podcast you did a takeover for Brian, and you said you pulled up to like a Perfect Cut job site and all the plant material was fried before it even got into the soil. And when I heard that, I'm sitting on my mower and I just started laughing, and I was like, okay, I'm not the only one. So it's reassuring when I'm having a tough time, or if I don't know the answers, it's nice to hear that I'm not the only one going through something. A guy didn't show up. I'm not the only one that's experiencing that. So
yeah, certainly. We think we've had a lot of good guests on, and we continue to anytime somebody asks me a question, sometimes I'll just say, hey, I just had a guy recently was struggling with something. I said, hey, did you catch the Bob Runyon podcast? Because he talked a lot about mentoring employees and accountability and giving them three things that three takeaways from every time he sits down with somebody. And so yeah, when people reach out to me and have questions, I'm like, hey, did you check out episode 68? Did you check out because it's like, instead of me trying to tell them, like, listen to this episode, I think it'll give you some insight. So I appreciate you saying that, Joe. We're certainly, Leroy and I do this. We enjoy doing it, and, we still learn stuff on it every day. And we get guests on quite often where Leroy's like, shit, I want to do that in my business. And I'm a little more removed from the day-to-day at Perfect Cut and our size now. But we both still learn stuff all the time where I'm like, shit, I think I could do that, And there's been numerous ones where you were like, actually, we had Brittany Alman on. You're like, man, that makes sense for our install.
Cool idea. Yeah. I learn a lot off this thing.
Do you do anything with it?
I try to. Yeah. I do, believe it or not. I got things running pretty smooth. I'm sitting here, doing these podcasts, and my phone beeped once on me. So
good for you.
I'm excited. Yeah. Hey, Joe, what's the best business advice you've ever been given?
So the best business advice I've ever been given, it's generic. I have two. Know your numbers. Obviously, that helped me big time. First year, we didn't know our numbers at all. Went in the hole, and looking at your father and hearing from your father and saying, hey, if we have one more year like this, we're shutting the doors. That was a scary moment in my career to hear. So knowing your numbers, it's so basic, but there's a lot just built in that small phrase that can just help you big time. And the second one was what my father said: don't let the business run you. You have to run the business. That's my day to day. Going into the business, I said, I'm running this business. I'm not letting it fall apart.
And I love that because I spend a lot of time on Saturdays and Sundays, especially. Sunday mornings, I get up and there's nobody else in my house. I go downstairs to my office and work, and I'm doing green grind stuff, and I'm just doing things. And I do that so I'm prepared for Monday morning, so I don't get run out of my office and it's a chaos from the start Monday morning. And it is amazing how much, an hour and a half worth of prep work the day before for the following day will make that day go so much smoother for you. And you can actually run your own business that way rather than it running you. So
absolutely, it makes sense to me because I've been on both sides. I've been super involved and I've been hands off, but when your business is running you, it's tough. It's hard work. We put in a ton of hours, and every single day I remember just dreading going in so many times, and I've said this numerous times, praying for Fridays and hating Mondays, and that sucks. It's tough. It's just tough. And when you're doing that, man, it just makes it's hard. And that's why a lot of guys quit. That's when they throw in the towel. There's a lot of companies that are closing. There's companies for sale. And there's just not a lot of value in them. And it's because they don't have a company. They have a job, and there's a big difference. But,
for sure.
Joe, if our listeners want to find you or check out your website or Instagram or what do you got, where would they find you if they want to check out your company?
Yeah, so we're on Instagram, Facebook, and we have a website. So our Instagram is A+ Turf Ornamental. And our Facebook is A+ Ornamental and Turf as well as our website is a+ornamentalandturf.com. And if they want to reach out, A+turfornamental@gmail.com. It's our email.
All right, and that'll go right to you, or that'll go to Dad?
Well, we're all on that email,
Okay.
but usually me and my brother monitor it.
Nice,
So, yeah.
nice. Awesome, Joe. We appreciate you being on. Guys, we drop a new episode of The Green Grind every Tuesday. If you want to be a guest, I say this every week, but if you go to the Ballard website and you scroll down a little bit, you'll see the Green Grind logo. You can fill that out. It goes directly to me. It makes my job a little easier if you guys reach out because we're always trying to find good guests. And Joe, we appreciate you being on today, man. It sounds like you guys have a great company going at any age, but I like that you're a young entrepreneur and you seem to really have it dialed in. So I'm pretty certain you guys are going to continue to grow and grow successfully. And this might be a good one for us to have back on. We've been saying that, but if we don't reach out to you, Joe, next, about a year from now, reach back out to us and say, hey, you told me to follow up. I'd love to get you back on and see how you guys have grown the company and how things are going for you.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. I really appreciate being on it.
Thanks so much,
Awesome.
Joe.
Thanks, Joe.